One of the top events at Royal Caribbean's President's Cruise is the Common Ground event. This is a Q&A with Royal Caribbean CEO Michael Bailey, and it's an opportunity for basically anybody to stand up and ask the CEO a question. Over the years, this has really been a source of a lot of interesting tidbits, information, and kind of insight really into what Royal Caribbean is thinking, because these are questions coming from guests, not media, not investors, but people who have everyday concerns. And some of the questions are really mundane, some are very high level thoughts, and others are simply complaints or even compliments, quite frankly. But the bottom line is we usually get some insight into what Royal Caribbean is thinking. And with a lot of things that Royal Caribbean says, it's not so much what they say, but what's said in between them. And today I want to talk about the 5 rumors that came out of the President's Cruise Common Ground event that I got out of this event, and I wanted to share with you here. Now, these are rumors, so there's a reason why maybe they don't make a blog post or they don't make, news necessarily, but it gives us insight into what to expect, and you kind of run with it as you see fit. Number 1, let's talk about the Icon class ships and where they'll go beyond Florida, because one of the questions, which we'll get to in a second, was about putting an Icon class ship in California, Southern California. But before that, Michael Bailey couldn't help himself but talk about the idea that maybe they'd be bringing an Icon class ship to Galveston. Now, as of right now, today, they're recording this podcast, there is no confirmation that Royal Caribbean has any plans for that. Keeping in mind, by the way, that Royal Caribbean is going to release its new deployments for 2027 and 2028, beginning in October. And then as it's going to roll through for the next couple of weeks. But let's also keep in mind that 2027 is the same year that Perfect Day Mexico is slated to open. That'll happen in September. And Michael Bailey said basically everything he possibly could say without confirming that there's going to be an Icon class ship in Galveston. He said, I think somebody asked us if we were going to bring an Icon class ship to Galveston. We haven't confirmed or denied that. But I would say, we're building Perfect Day Mexico, which is absolutely epic. So I wouldn't be surprised if some big announcement came to Galveston. I'm not saying we're putting an Icon class ship there, but I was a gambling man, but I'm not saying we're doing it, end quote. In fact, right after that, he actually called me out and said, I hope that Royal Caribbean blog guy isn't here because he didn't want me to quote him on it. Well, it's a podcast. I don't think he listens to the podcast. But anyway, this is a well-established rumor. Royal Caribbean has hinted about this many times. In fact, Mr. Bailey has himself mentioned this a number of different times that an Icon class should go there. Let's remember that when you get past Legend of the Seas, which is the next new Icon class ship, that'll put it at 3. Well, you've run out of ports in Florida you can put an Icon class ship in, right? There's only 3 that can fit there. Port Canaveral, Port Everglades, Fort Lauderdale, and Port Miami. After that, you've run out of ports in Florida. Tampa can't support it, and certainly Royal Caribbean doesn't sail from any of their ports in Florida, even if they could support it. So it's got to go somewhere else. And as Mr. Bailey alluded to, with the opening of Perfect Day Mexico, and the fact that, I think every single piece of concept art you see with a cruise ship docked in the concept art, not that that means anything, but anyway, every single piece of concept art has an Icon class ship docked there. To me, like he said, it's pretty much all but confirmed. It's not denied, it's not confirmed, but it's about, a 98% chance of happening kind of rumor. Now, I would have thought, actually, they would have started this probably last year, maybe, at least when they released the new deployments for 2026 and 2027. But at any rate, I would be pretty darn surprised if they didn't announce an Icon class ship out of Galveston in 2027, 2028. Now, keeping in mind, by the way, this is all rumors, so who knows? But he definitely did everything he could, but actually confirm that there would be an Icon class ship out there. That leads us to rumor number 2, which was, will there ever put an Icon class ship in California? And Mr. Bailey kind of danced around this issue, and he didn't come anywhere close to confirming anything by any means. But he basically talked about the issues and the reasons why it would be difficult, not impossible, to put an Icon class ship there. He said, quote, there are challenges with building itineraries that we think are marketable enough to sustain a lot of capacity in the market, end quote. And they also said, but we're working on that as well. So I guess not end quote, but now end quote. The bottom line is, what that really means is, sure, they'd love to put an Icon class ship just about anywhere, but it's a matter of where can they make the most amount of money out there. Like, if you put a ship in a market that can't support it, you're going to have an empty ship. A ship that's going to be sailing with less passengers, and in order to fill up the ship to make up for that, usually you see prices drop. They don't want to do that. They want to put these in markets with high demand and higher prices that go with that. He went on to say, I think we view the California market as a great market for Royal Caribbean. Tens and tens of thousands of Californians come and sail on Royal Caribbean every year. And a lot of Californians fly to Europe to sail on those ships. So we're aware of the pent-up demand in California, but there's no comments I can make about any kinds of plans that we have for California at the moment, and just say it's that we think about it a lot. So, end quote. That's an interesting quote, really, when you think about it, because, sometimes there are things, ideas that are out there, and they dismiss them. And in reading between the lines here on this rumor, I would say that it's not out of the realms of possibility. Personally, I think if Royal Caribbean ever built an Icon class ship, or rather put an Icon class ship for California, I think there'd probably have to be one or two things or more for it to really happen. Number one, I always kind of assumed that if they were ever going to put an Oasis class ship for that matter, or an Icon class ship, that perhaps it would split its time. Like it would spend part of the season in California and part of the season in China or Australia, something like that, similar to what they already do with some of their ships that are going between Australia and Alaska. But also, there is that possibility, perhaps, of doing kind of what they're doing with Perfect Day Mexico, and that is opening up some sort of a perfect day destination or a beach club on the West Coast. The West Coast of the U.S. has been this like secondary market for as long as my blog has been around, in the sense that I'm not saying about other cruise lines, but Royal Caribbean, obviously was ignoring it for about 10 years before they resumed sailings there. And I feel like while it's doing well, probably actually doing better than I would have maybe imagined early on, but now you've got, three ships sailing out of there. There's going to be cruises out of San Diego, but it's definitely not, the capital of cruising by any means. But if they ever added a private destination out there, that would really boost the traffic, the need to have bigger ships. Personally, if I had to guess, I would assume Royal Caribbean would put an Oasis class ship there first before an Icon class ship. I mean, that would seem to me to be the order of operations, right? Because if you look at Galveston, that's exactly what we did. Not too long ago, they only had old ships sailing out of Galveston. Then they upgraded that to the Freedom class. Remember when Liberty went there? And then the Oasis class, when Allure went there. And then now we think probably an Icon class ship. So it'll be interesting to see, if you will, the possibilities there. I was really surprised by the question or by the answer to the question, not the question itself. Like when the person asked me about an Icon class ship in SoCal, I didn't laugh it off, but I really wouldn't have bet there would be much of an answer to that one. But the truth is that they gave way more information there, which kind of to me maybe says there is actually more thought going out there. I'm not saying that if you live out in SoCal, you should start packing your bags for some sort of Icon class ship. I mean, the fact that, they're aware of it and they're doing these things and blah, 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 like to me, that's still a number of years away. And I think you need one of those precursors for a larger ship in that market. All right, let's move on to rumor number 3. And that was the Discovery class. Now, this is like the worst kept secret in all of Royal Caribbean. I mean, they've been talking about this off the record, but on the record, but off the record for years now. And this is the new ship class that allegedly is coming out next, we assume. It is smaller than an Icon class ship. I think we just did a podcast episode actually all about the Discovery class, so check out that episode for an in-depth thing. There were 2 things that came out of this. Somebody asked, I think actually, if not the first or the second question was about the Discovery class, and 2 things came out of that discussion that we didn't know beforehand. One is that the places it'll be going to. Mr. Bailey said specifically, for example, it would be going to the Mediterranean, Europe, Northern Europe, Alaska, Asia Pacific itineraries. And that's why they named it the Discovery class, because they wanted to go to those more exotic itineraries that sometimes they're called meta regions, which is news to me. I've never heard that before anyway, but that's where they're looking for it to go. So that doesn't mean it can't go somewhere else. I'm simply saying that's where Michael Bailey said so. And that's the first time I've ever heard any discussion about where these ships might go. Now, this kind of makes some sense because Royal Caribbean has talked about the fact that they envision this being a replacement for the Vision and the Radiance class ships, but I really think it's not so much a replacement in terms of ship size, which I talked about in the other episode, but more for where they can go. Like basically, if today you wanted to do an Adriatic cruise in the Med, you would have to go on a smaller ship like I think it's either going to be a Vision class ship. If you're lucky, you get like an Explorer of the Seas, which is a Voyager class ship. But when you put a new ship in the same market, you make more money with it. I think that's kind of where they're going with it. That's number 1. The other piece of information we got is that the Discovery class will be Panama Canal capable, which means it'll go through the Panama Canal, and that allows it to be able to do the Alaska in the summer and then get back into the Caribbean. Now, this particular piece of information about the Panama Canal came through roundabout a different question about Tampa in general and maybe the Discovery class or something else being able to go there. And he talked about the idea, basically reiterated the problems that the Port of Tampa has with the bridge. But anyway, he didn't really confirm anything one way or another. He just simply said that it'll be Panama Canal capable. So those are 2 pieces of information. Other than that, no confirmation, no announcement about where the Discovery class will go and anything else like that. I mean, we really don't know when they'll announce it. I am kind of surprised it's still gone on this long without an official announcement, but there's a lot of moving pieces of this. And they did say that they're spending a lot of time working on the many, many, many hours of this. He did say that there will be making hopefully an announcement in the coming months. That was a direct quote, coming months. But I seem to recall last year, at the end of the year, right around this time, he said there might be an announcement by the end of 2024. Obviously, that has come and gone. But you never know. Anyway, the point of this is that the Discovery class is definitely happening, but we really still know very little about it. It's just kind of surprising to me how much they talk about it for a project that doesn't technically exist. I mean, officially, like, hasn't been confirmed, but they talk about roundabout. Anyway, it's just, there's the latest we have on the Discovery class. Rumor number 4 relates to the Port of Baltimore. A lot of people want to know about what's going on there because obviously Royal Caribbean has stopped making it a year-round destination. And Michael Bailey was kind of surprised by the question. I think he didn't realize that nothing else has been released. But essentially, Baltimore is going to be a seasonal port. It'll be coming back every summer, but they're simply not putting it out in the winter and keeping it a year-round product anymore. He basically talked about some of the logistical problems you have with having a cruise ship operating out of northeastern ports. There's just more challenges to them. And so he likes the Port of Baltimore. He wants to offer cruises there, but he thinks it just makes a lot more sense to have cruises that sail out of Baltimore in the summer season rather than keeping them year round. So the good news is Royal Caribbean is not completely abandoning Baltimore. The bad news is you're not going to see ships there year round probably anytime soon. And of course, remember, Baltimore and Tampa both suffer from the same problem, which is that there are bridges that prevent bigger ships from going there. So if Royal Caribbean wanted to experiment with a Voyager class ship or an Oasis class ship in those places, similar to what they did in California or Galveston, they can't because they physically can't fit the ships in there. That's the problem. And lastly, the most important question, what is the dog's name going to be for Legend of the Seas? This came up as one of the questions that was there, and I was a little surprised by it. But Michael Bailey, a little cagey with some of these things, but he did give 2 names. And I think one is definitely a red herring. Like, it's not real. I don't think there's any chance of it happening. He did put it out for a popular vote based on applause. Not that means anything. But the 2 names he put out, first was Popeye, which I think everybody was like, huh? And the other was Skipper, of which a lot of people responded. And based on the feedback there, for what it's worth, Skipper definitely was the resounding name that was picked for it, or at least most popular name based on the crowd there. And it makes a lot of sense. You've got Rover and Sailor and Skipper. It seems to be, especially Sailor and Skipper, are very much in the same genre of names, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Plus, I mean, Popeye doesn't have to be a boy's name, but I mean, they've only used girl dog so far, so I feel like that's part of the reason that was there. But ultimately, a lot of these rumors are more just like food for thought, things that are going to, I feel like the Icon thing coming to Galveston and the Discovery class information are the biggest components of this rumor mill. But there's a lot more that's beyond the means there. And, it's an exciting time, I think, for Royal Caribbean with a lot of new things coming out. And hopefully, as we get a sense of some of these new projects coming online, we'll get even more information about some of these confirmations and what will happen in the future. Time to answer listener emails, and our first email is from Tim. Matt, FYI, I booked an Air to Sea plane ticket for 2 first-class tickets. The website didn't let me pick my seat, so I called Royal Caribbean Air to Sea, and I called the phone number, and he put the phone number in here, but I'm just going to say it ends in 4023. The attendant who picked up verified my information told me the reservation was on hold because I needed to pay taxes and fees separately. He wanted $900 plus. I said that was as much as the ticket. Put me on hold and came back with $319. I told them I needed to verify a few things and hung up. I went to Alaska Airlines website, was able to log in and make the selection at no charge. Was I getting scammed? Do I need to warn others rather? It seemed, I called the number that Tim gave me. I got a gentleman with an accent, not that, I mean, these days, anybody who picks up the phone in a call center probably is going to have an accent anyway. But I played stupid and was like, hey, what's your name? What company is this? And he wouldn't give me a straight answer. Anyway, more importantly, I went to the Air to Sea. I just Googled Royal Caribbean Air to Sea. And at the top of this link, at the top of the webpage says, 1-866-562-7625. And there was another 1-800 number that was different than the one that we have here in the email from Tim that gave a completely different number. Anyway, the bottom line is, when you're calling Royal Caribbean, or you think you're calling Royal Caribbean, never Google the number, like type in, Google, like, hey, what's the phone number for Royal Caribbean? And the information that pops up there, that's not the number to go on. What you want to do is actually go to the website, because any information that's the real website will have the real phone number. So as an example, I went to, I clicked on the Royal Caribbean Air to Sea, and it's clearly the Royal Caribbean website. And this is an important just safety tip for online in general. Never go off phone numbers that Google gives you as it's AI generated, because it's very easy for scammers to manipulate the results in order to get that, because this is the problem with AI, and I don't want to go into a whole conversation about this, but Yeah, you did the right thing. If you're not sure, hang up. Better yet, this is also why you work with a good travel agent, so they can help you with this, because they can help with air to sea. Next email is from Jacob. We're sailing in a few days in Liberty this season. My family's favorite nights while cruising has always been disco 70s party. I've noticed the cruise plan for Liberty has been changed to a decades party, music in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I was wondering if this has changed fleet-wide, or is it just Liberty? We sailed on Harmony last month, and they still had the standard disco night. I'll be interested to see how the new decades format holds up, and hope that they still incorporate hot stuff, the hustle, and other 70s hits. Thanks for all you do. Stay groovy, Jacob. Jacob, Royal Caribbean does change its entertainment a lot. We have seen, especially on new ships, shift towards definitely Y2K, 90s type music. I mean, that's the evolution. Right now, more than half of all Royal Caribbean customers are millennials. So it kind of makes sense that they need to move past the 70s parties. But to some extent, some ships are going to have different entertainment options. Like, as an example, Utopia and Wonder, which are the short cruise, party ships, quote unquote, offer, a variety of different entertainment you're not going to find on even Icon of the Seas. So there's an evolution to these things. So to some extent, yes, I think what you're seeing is that you're seeing the shift in there, and but hopefully you'll still have a great time on there nonetheless. Next up, we have an email from Haley. Hi, Matt. First, love your podcast, blog, and a big thanks for all you do to help us loyal to Royal folks. I wanted to add my experience to a topic that you brought up on the August 13th podcast with a question from Mel Mac about cruise repricing. We're Canadian as well, therefore the repricing option should apply. We're booked on Wonder of the Seas in April of 2026 and booked 6 weeks ago. In the week since, the prices dropped twice. I called Royal Caribbean about 2 weeks ago, and the first person I spoke to let me know the new price is only applicable to new bookings. We ended the call, and I didn't feel right about that. I've repriced the last 5 Royal Caribbean cruises I've been on, so I decided to call again. The second rep allowed me to reprice without hesitation, and we saved $70. Not a huge savings, but certainly helps pay for that beverage package. Fast forward to this morning, price dropping up by $80. I again phoned, and the first person I spoke to let me know it's only applicable to new bookings. I did check the fine print of the all-in sale and the Go for Bold sale happening today, and both specified new bookings only. I ended that call and tried my luck again. The second rep allowed the discount without hesitation or any mention of new bookings only. On your last podcast, you really said what I was thinking. Keep calling back until you get the answer you want. Do you think this really could be the start of a new rule set by Royal Caribbean to phase our repricing? After all, they are a for-profit business. Honestly, I don't, Haley. I think this is just bad training. People who don't understand or don't know. I'm not blaming them. There's a lot of rules and things that are out there. And it's a very, very common situation. Haley, I've been doing this podcast for how many years? Blog even longer. This story of people who call Royal Caribbean to do a repricing when they should be able to get it and get told no, then call back to somebody else and get told yes. This has been a constant, Haley, since the beginning of RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. It's not a new policy. This is just unfortunately, the round robin you get with the call center. This is one of many, many reasons that a good travel agent, again, can bypass this whole thing because you don't have to worry about this. So really, this is just lack of information. I don't say poor training, whatever you want to call it, but I don't think it's not a new phenomenon. I'm not surprised by it, which is why when Mel Mac brought it up, I immediately was like, oh, just call back till you get the answer you want. So yeah, if you're aware of a policy, call back till you get the answer you want, or at least give it 2 or 3 tries before you completely give up on it. But no, I don't think that's a shift in the policy. If they're going to do a shift, it's going to be across the board. You're not going to be able to pick up the phone and talk to person A versus person B and get 2 totally different answers. At least you shouldn't have to anyway. Next, we have an email from Debbie. I just scored a fantastic price on the deluxe beverage package for my upcoming cruise on Freedom of the Seas. I took your advice and booked it on a 40% off sale, canceled, and rebooked when it went to 45% off, and then again at 50% and again at 55% off. This got me thinking about gratuities to the bartenders. When you book the drink package, the gratuities are added automatically. When you get such a great deal like 55% off, it looks like the bartenders are earning less tips for the same work. I've never stopped to think about this, and I'm probably not alone. Is it best to get the bartenders extra in cash, or are you able to add additional gratuity when you order individual drinks? What do you suggest? It's a great question, actually. I never really thought about that. I always assumed, and I could be totally wrong on this, that when Royal Caribbean discounts the drink package, especially online, the discount, the money that's not being taken in, right? That comes out of Royal Caribbean's back end, like their profit. And you may say, well, Matt, that's very, naive of you. They're I'm assuming, I don't know that for a fact, but that was been my running assumption. Personally, whenever I order a drink, if I have a drink package, if I'm using my diamond drinks, I tip an extra $1 anyway. I carry ones with me, and I do that for 2 reasons. 1, I think they deserve it. They work hard. And number 2, honestly, if you tip them $1 each time, you're going to get better service. They're going to remember you, especially when there's a crowded bar. They will come to you first. They will come to you when you have a quarter of your drink left there. It's $1, and then over the course of a day, if you're spending $10 on tips, I don't think it's really that crazy to do that. But the bottom line is, to answer your question, I don't know definitively how that works. Like, let's say if someone pays $100 for the drink package and someone pays $55 for the drink package, right, on the same sailing, same ship, I assume that basically the way that it works is the gratuity, when you pay cash, let's put it this way, when you buy a drink, any drink, $14 drink, you get charged 18% gratuity, right? It's off the cost of the drink, not the cost of the drink package. So I don't know. I'm going to go with, as I say all this, now I'm wondering, well, obviously if you go to buy the drink package online, right, you're going to be charged that service fee, which is the gratuities, and I suspect that is actually a lower price. So as I'm thinking about this, I guess it's probably true, Debbie, that there is less of the pool that's there. But then I fall back on what I usually say, which is that I tip them $1 anyway, because I just feel like I get better service, and I think they deserve it. So hopefully that answers your question. Kind of a roundabout answer for you. And Debbie says, another quick question. Does checking in on the app affect Royal Up bids at all? If you're already checked in, can your Royal Up still be awarded? And the answer is yeah. No, it has no effect on it. You can still do Royal Ups. They're separate functions. Checking into your cruise does not negate your ability to get a Royal Up bid. So it's a good question there. All right, our next email is coming to us from Michael Dorgan. Hey, Matt, what's the deal with the Crown Lounge rules and limited access due to higher tier members on a certain cruise? I'm on Liberty sailing this week, and when I got into my cabin, I found the attached letter telling my family and I that we could not use the lounge during the nightly cocktail hours between 4:30 and 7:30 p.m. because the lounge needed to be exclusive for Pinnacle and Diamond Plus members. I asked the concierge in the lounge about this policy, and she said it was being sent fleet-wide from Miami and they have to enforce it. I was curious if there is a large part of Pinnacle and Diamond Plus members on my sailing, and I missed the loyalty event earlier today, but another cruiser posted the breakdown of members of the sailing in a Facebook group. Just looking for the insight about this, as there's definitely ways Royal Caribbean could spread members out to help with lounge space. Great question. So your answer is, you kind of got it. There are a lot of members. Now, on the screenshot he sent me from the person in the Facebook group, 44 Pinnacle Club members and 196 Diamond Plus and 342 Diamond members. That is a lot of top-tier Crown and Anchor members, especially Pinnacle. I mean, when you're above 20 Pinnacles, that's a lot. I'm going to say this, Michael, and I'm saying this as a Pinnacle member, and I would have said this when I was Diamond Plus and Diamond. The Diamond Lounge is totally overrated. Crown Lounge, is totally overrated. I mean, it's nice, but in this day and age in which we have your diamonds, you get 4 drinks a day. You can use them at any bar. And it's not the old days. In the old days, if you were in the Diamond Lounge, you get unlimited drinks. It's not the case anymore. You get charged your drinks the same way. I would much rather be in almost any other bar than the Crown Lounge. Number one, there's entertainment in other bars. I'd rather go to the pub or the Schooner Bar or Julie Pianos or any bar with entertainment, because I'd rather have music and something to entertain me than conversation. The appeal of the Crown Lounge, I believe, has always been you can meet other cruisers who are top tier cruisers. I've had great conversations with people that are brand new to Royal Caribbean. I've had great conversations with people that are been with Royal Caribbean for decades, right? I just don't see the appeal of the Crown Lounge in the evening for the purposes of your drinks. You get the same amount of drinks somewhere else. I mean, call me crazy, but that's what it is. But also, that's not a new policy. It's been around for a while. Basically, this is how Royal Caribbean manages the Crown Lounge overcrowding. In a sailing in which there are a lot of Crown and Anchor members, and I don't know which, you were on Liberty this season, but I don't know what length the cruise was. I'm going to guess it was on a shorter sailing. You have they have to manage. You get more top tier members, and this is how they manage it. They basically cut it off. The same thing happens to us as a Pinnacle Club member. As an example, when I was on Utopia of the Seas for the President's Cruise, even though I'm a Pinnacle Club member, I wasn't allowed in Coastal Kitchen because there were too many other Pinnacle Club members. So they just basically figure out the number and they cut it off based on your point total. So it makes you feel any better. It happens across the board for other things, other perks and benefits. But this is how they do that. And I think, quite frankly, number one, I'm okay with it, because the alternative is, well, they get rid of it. So, okay, well, you know what? They're not going to build a bigger Crown Lounge. They're not going to. It's just not going to happen. Let's be realistic. You can say you'd like to have it happen. Okay, that's fine. They're not going to do it. It's just from a financial profit standpoint, they're just not going to do it. But again, the Crown Lounge is nice. Most hours of the day, you can go in there and use it for whatever. between 4:30 and 7:30, I would much rather be in another bar using the same amount of drinks I'd be getting in the Crown Lounge, but with entertainment, more people around me. I can also hang out with my friends who may or may not have the same status as me. I just think that ever since they made that switch to the vouchers and you have the same amount no matter where you are, I think that's been a huge win. So, you mentioned here you're looking for insight about ways Royal could spread members around to help with the lounge space. That is exactly what they're doing. They giving the vouchers that you can use almost anywhere allow you to basically, not be so dependent on the Crown Lounge. And again, it's only between 4:30 and 7:30 p.m. Obviously, if you want to go there in the morning, use the coffee machine. There's no prohibition about that. And our last question this week is from Greg. Hi, Matt. Love the podcast, YouTube channel, and the blog postings. Thanks for everything you do. Quick Royal Up question for you. I understand that the Royal Up bid is accepted into a suite that you do not earn double Crown and Anchor points on the suite, but you get access to other amenities that are included with the suite, such as the Coastal Kitchen and the Suite Lounge. And the answer is yes. So if you go from a balcony to a grand suite, you don't get double points in Crown and Anchor, but you do get access to all the other amenities included, so no worries there. Greg also writes, if you booked a junior suite originally, but Royal up into a grand or owner suite, do you still get double Crown and Anchor points that you would have received from the junior suite, or are those lost the upgrade? The answer is you would still get double points, because junior suites are entitled to double points regardless, so that's not a problem. It's only if you move from a cabin that originally would get you single points per night to a suite, which you get double, then that's where that would not occur. But if you're going from a suite to a suite, even if it's a junior suite, yeah, you're still good on that front. So thank you, Greg. Thanks for the email. Thank you, everybody, for checking out this episode of the Royal Caribbean Blog Podcast. Of course, you can always email me your questions by sending to matt@royalcaribbeanblog.com, matt@royalcaribbeanblog.com. Until next time, I'm Matt. We'll talk again real soon.